I'm going to share my screen first before. All right. I don't know where my other screen went. Oh, sorry. All right, welcome to STROLO University. We hope you enjoyed today's class. Please keep checking our website at cflf.org/STROLO-U and/or our Facebook page and our Instagram, which will have updates every week. For today, we have our community resources class with Lauren Bonnell and their nonprofit, the Bonnell Foundation. And thank you to our sponsors, Nestle Health Science, Beatrice, and Chiesi. All right, it's ready to go.
All right, great. Can I share the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. All right. Okay, can you see it okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. Well, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much. I'm Laura Bonnell. I started the Bonnell Foundation in 2010, and both of my daughters have cystic fibrosis. Molly is 27 and Emily is 24. Molly is actually living in London, England, going to school there. Well, she actually graduated, got her master's there. And has experienced the health system in the United Kingdom. And Emily is here in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan, where I am as well. There they are, if you can see them. I don't know if you can see them, but Emily has the green shirt on and Molly has the pink shirt on. That was a couple of years ago, but they're doing really well. We've always empowered them to take control of their cystic fibrosis and challenge the doctors, challenge the nurses, just really take charge of their lives, because it is so very important that they ask questions and that they know exactly how to take care of themselves. Emily just recently had a pretty bad exacerbation. She still has her PICC line in. So it's just an ongoing thing, as all of you know, that it is very important that they both take care of their health. We were separated from Molly because of the pandemic. We just got to see her in July. So it is really important to start them as young as kindergarten to empower them on, hey, you can talk about your enzymes, you can talk about your disease, whether it's a decision whether you want people to know or not. But really, I think that that's helped them to where they are today, taking small steps when they were younger. When they were born, I knew right away that I wanted to start my own foundation. I was a news reporter here in Detroit at an all news station, and I felt like I was given the voice to get the word out about cystic fibrosis, but I knew I also wanted to help families. So I was a reporter for 25 years and an anchor here in Detroit. And then 11 years ago, I started the foundation. And 3 years ago, I decided to just do the foundation full time. And it is absolutely my happy place. It's also my therapy. I talk to parents all the time. We can relate, we help each other. I talk to dads and moms and do a lot of advocacy as well. So it's been wonderful to meet people from across the country, to meet Brian, to meet other people from other foundations across the country. It's been fantastic. So I'll tell you a little bit about my journey. So you know this guy, Dr. Francis Collins. My story was, I've been a reporter forever, and I decided to take 1 year off in 1989 and do some PR for the United Way in Ann Arbor. So I was doing work there, and that just happened to be the year that they discovered the gene that causes CF. Dr. Collins, of course, was part of that group. And I wasn't married yet. I didn't know the role that cystic fibrosis was going to have in my life. I was dating my now husband, but like I said, we weren't married. And then there was like a local news conference, and I was there for that. So it was just crazy how I was really born to be in this role my entire life. I had met somebody with cystic fibrosis. We were doing this campaign ad, and I remember Jeff is the first person I met. He was 24 years old, and I still didn't know anything about cystic fibrosis. I just kind of knew the name. So having met Dr. Collins then, and then meeting him throughout the years again and again and again, as recently as in July, seeing him again, it was just fantastic. He's our hero, right? He has helped us all kind of watch the progression of how things have gone in the world of cystic fibrosis. So that has been wonderful to have a connection to him, and of course everyone else in the CF community. That's kind of where I got my start. The local radio and TV stations here still play public service announcements about the foundation. I just think advocacy is really one of the most important things we can do to raise awareness and to help everyone in our community. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we do. The picture is from our last fundraiser, which was in September. Everybody was masked. No one got COVID. Everybody, of course, understood it was in Detroit on Belle Isle, and it was a beautiful night. It was like outside. You can't tell, but the doors are open there. So it was a really wonderful night. I think the CF community, we did really well in the pandemic, even though it was very hard. I tell everyone, if that administration, when the pandemic started, had asked CF parents and done public service announcements with us, it would have been such a different outcome. We really would have educated the country and the world about how to deal with a pandemic as far as masking and 6 feet apart in clinical trials. It's a shame that even today, even this administration, there's still so much they can learn from the cystic fibrosis community as far as all of this. So it's too bad we didn't have a higher profile during this pandemic, because I think although we've helped on the local levels, I think we really could have helped nationwide ease everyone's minds and talk people through this very, very hard time. So what our foundation does is we advocate, and one of the things we're working on right now in Michigan is the Rare Disease Advisory Council. It's passed in, I think, about 21 states right now, and that's really to give the rare disease community, which includes cystic fibrosis, of course, a voice. So it's to talk about things like step therapy and affordability boards, and ICER, which is the Institute for Clinical and Economic Review, which discriminates against people with rare diseases and really hurts us. So we do as much advocacy as we can. And we also give financial assistance to cystic fibrosis families. So if you have co-pays that aren't covered, we give up to $500 for each, copay that you have, up to twice a year. And then we have lung transplant grants, and that covers if you're paying rent or something in another state. Everyone knows what's entailed with that, but it also pays for gas and other things that are related to a lung transplant. And then our education scholarships are for anybody who has cystic fibrosis and wants to go to a trade school, wants to go to a university or a community college, and you apply for a grant. And that just closed, so we're excited to see. We're just reading through essays now, and then we award people in August, and they'll have that for the start of school. But we've been doing that program for a long time. It's very successful. And we started doing webinars about that, and it's good to get a lot of feedback and questions. The other thing that we're doing, like you're doing right now, is we do a lot of educational webinars. We have one coming up with Bonnell Trivedi, who wrote Breath from Salt. It's a book about the history of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation and how Bob Bell and everybody, all these parents, played a role in starting the CF Foundation. So it's wonderful because you see how Joe and Kathy O'Donnell and all of these parents came together and said, hey, we're experiencing the same thing and we need research to help us find a cure for this disease. So her book is a wonderful and enlightening, beautiful summary of everything that happened to start the CF Foundation. And it also shows where we've come as far as research and triple combination drugs and all of that. So it was great. I did a podcast with her. It was great to meet her and to read her book. She's just so excited and full of energy, and she learned a lot too. So she'll have a lot to share. And then we're also talking with another mom about nutrition in people with CF, because as you may or may not know, in 1938, when Dr. Dorothy Anderson kind of figured out that there was cystic fibrosis, they were starting people with CF on a low-fat diet because they felt, well, if you're having greasy poops and all this trouble with your digestive system, it'll be easier on your system if you start with a low-fat diet. And of course, people with cystic fibrosis were so thin, they were getting so ill, and it wasn't at all helping. So then they switched it to, oh, we should put you on a high-fat diet. And then in the beginning, the enzymes weren't coded, so they weren't going to where they needed to go in the digestive system. And so that wasn't helping either, because people were still having horrific digestive pain. So now that the enzymes are coded and they get to where they need to be so they can digest the food, people with cystic fibrosis are doing a lot better. So it was something that I learned with my girls. They didn't need all this high-fat food. It's just not advice, because you need to talk to your doctor and get all of your advice from your doctor. But as moms, we started talking about this high-fat diet wasn't benefiting our kids. So my girls are vegetarians, and it's just a whole kind of different look about how to eat when you have cystic fibrosis. So that's what we're talking about in that webinar. And then in CF Awareness Month, we're making it official, because we have to do it every year, and in every state, make it officially CF Awareness Month. And our legislators are great. They're like, every year we're going to do this. So it is fun that we go to Capitol, to our capital in Lansing, and they make it official. And we actually have a legislator representative, Mueller, whose sister has cystic fibrosis, so it's close to his heart as well. and Representative Jim Ellison has been doing this for us year after year after year. So we appreciate that. We're also showcasing moms in the month of May, and we'll do dads in the month of June, but it's kind of our pearls of wisdom. Like, what do you think as a CF mom? What advice do you have to give to other CF moms? It's something when I talk to CF moms, we're always talking about things like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? When did you start them on, this? Are you having problems? It's just so many things. We felt like parents are so busy. You have treatments, then you're trying to keep your kids normal, going to all their athletics, or you're trying to keep them in school, and you don't always have time to call up a mom. So we're just putting the advice on our website, and this way moms will be able to see it and kind of click on it. So we're doing a little bit of that, and I think that'll be real fun too, because CF moms, we could talk forever. So we like giving advice and getting advice as well. And then the other thing that we do a lot of, and it's my most favorite thing because it's very close to what I've done my entire life in radio and television, but our podcasts. We highlight so many things. We have highlighted how difficult it is for people in the Middle East. I specifically featured some CF patients in Egypt who they just didn't even believe that people in Egypt had cystic fibrosis, and so they weren't being diagnosed. And now about 1,000 people have been diagnosed. And Dr. Samia Nasser with the University of Michigan, her native country is Egypt, and she goes there every year and is testing more and more people with CF and is trying to really raise awareness about cystic fibrosis there. It's a very sad situation. They can't get enzymes. I've talked to a dad who has twins with CF, and they only get enzymes every other day because he has to get enzymes from Saudi Arabia, and they're expensive. They have nothing covered by insurance. The other thing we've also talked to is the National Organization of African Americans with Cystic Fibrosis. They're also underdiagnosed. Many of you probably know Terry Wright. I've talked to him about being misdiagnosed until he was 54 years old. It's unbelievable that it's happening today, but I guess not unbelievable. The other thing I've also found out is that in talking with Dr. Ryan Thomas of Michigan State University, even though we have newborn screening, there are so many groups that are not going to get diagnosed with cystic fibrosis because the newborn screening in Michigan has 60 panels that will check to see if you have cystic fibrosis. They're the most popular mutations. So we have 2,000 now. So if you're Hispanic, you're probably not going to get diagnosed correctly. Maybe all the rare genes are going to be misdiagnosed. So you're going to think, well, I don't know. The newborn screening said my child doesn't have CF, so it can't be that. And then that could just add years in trying to figure out what's going on. So we really have to work on that, not only in Michigan, on making sure that every mutation is covered, but across the country. And so that's part of the advocacy that we're working on. There is so much that needs to be done. I think for me, one of the biggest things is connecting with other parents and talking about things that we feel that we need. And I think a lot of it is support. I know we can all relate to this. As caregivers, having just gone through weeks of having my daughter in the hospital, it is mentally and emotionally exhausting. So a lot of the focus is on our kids. They're in the hospital, they need us. They're going through the physical and mental trauma, but it's important to remember that the parents are also going through that. I mean, I'm exhausted. This one knocked me out again. And we've been doing this for 27 years because our oldest is 27. So it's just a reminder, we really need to take care of ourselves. We really need to have good therapists for our children and for ourselves. Something you need to keep reevaluating. I've had good therapists. I've had some bad ones. You got to leave the bad ones and just move on. Because that's a complete waste of time. So, if it doesn't feel right, that's not the right person for you. So that is pretty much what our foundation does. We have a lot of fundraisers. We want people to get involved. And I would also like to take questions and answer any questions that people have. If you want to do that right now, we can do that.
Yeah, I wish I knew about you guys back when I was needing a transplant. I don't think we used you as a nonprofit to help us, but my sister was my caregiver, and we had to move from Colorado to Minneapolis where they accepted to do my transplant. And then so we had to find housing and then like pay for housing, and just like we were there 8 months, or I waited on the list 8 months, but we were there total a whole year. So that's awesome that you do lung transplant grants and help with that kind of stuff.
I just don't think people realize how the expense, the emotion, everything that's entailed in it, and that as far as I know, it's still being called experimental as long as it's been going on. So the insurance doesn't cover so much of it. It's absolutely crazy. I also wanted to point out, you probably all know Dylan Mortimer, who has CF. He's had 2 double lung transplants.
Yes.
That's some of his artwork there.
Okay, I was like, I see something.
Yeah, that's some healthy lungs. And I have other pictures up here that he's done too. But
Oh, awesome.
I always have that behind me because we love him so much, and he's doing some great things, and he's done some great. He always helps us with our fundraising also by helping us with his work. So we appreciate him.
Yeah, Laura, I just want to comment on the great job you guys have done in also pulling the CF community and the organizations together and being a core part of the CF engagement network, and working on shared advocacy issues in the community that are just very frustrating and ongoing. But I really got to commend you, because I know for many years we've talked as you've progressed through the evolution of the organization and into being full-time director, the challenges that face or that come with that. And I think it's a challenge that I think having 2 daughters with CF, it's a challenge that is very surmountable, that you can do anything you want. And I think you're such a living role model to your daughters and to so many other people that you work with, that that spring of inspiration in you is just boundless. So really am such a fan of the work that you've done and the podcasts that you do, and the work that we've been able to do together on advocacy issues and on help in the community.
And I have to share something. I did share it with you in an email, Brian, but even today, it's 2022. My daughter is in the hospital and we're still fighting over pre-authorization. I know there's good and bad to it. Like, I guess it's good because, then the insurance company pays for it. But we had just had a situation just days ago where she's out on her PICC line, IV meds, and an oral medication that's very expensive. The pre-authorization, the discharge nurse, and it's not about blaming people, it's about figuring out the solution, right? So next time this doesn't happen, and that was my intent. But the problem is, it wasn't fixed and they still don't have a solution. The end result was I'm in a pharmacy begging the pharmacist, having plenty of health insurance coverage, but not being able to get the drug she needed, begging her to give us 2 doses of the medication so she doesn't miss any of her treatments because she's got this terrible lung infection. So I don't know, I just looked around at the pharmacy and I was like, see, it says pharmacist care and we'll do anything. And I said, ma'am, I need some compassion here. You're either going to have to take all those signs down or give me the 2 drugs. Charge me for them. I don't care. But my kid needs the medications now. So to her credit, she gave them to me, but I also felt terrible. This isn't how it should be. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. So here I am with plenty of health insurance, begging a pharmacist who's risking her job, giving me medications in an unmarked bottle. I don't have the side effects to it. I have nothing about it. The only reason I allowed my daughter to take it was because it said the name of the medication on the drug. It could have been anything. So it was a huge risk for everyone, and it's not right. I know our governor just signed something about pre-authorization that it should be done within 24 hours, but that wouldn't help us. We left the hospital expecting to get the drug and it wasn't there. And the discharge nurse had 2 days. So there shouldn't have been a delay. There's just so much work we have to do, because it was one mistake after another, really on the hospital's part. But again, it's just trying to say, oh, here's where the gap is. Here's where the problems are. This should not be happening. And if my daughter didn't have me, then it's the patient, the sick, exhausted patient, probably not begging the pharmacist, probably instead going home and crying and saying, well, I'm not getting my meds until the pre-auth goes through. That's probably what would have happened, and she probably would have ended up back in the hospital, and it would have cost the insurance company more. So it's very messed up. I was just thinking
the same thing, Laura, of here you are, a well-educated, well-versed advocate who is not backing down, but of how many families in our country, let alone in the world, that don't even have the knowledge to push on the insurance companies and to get to the right person and to make whatever needs to happen. And that has always been one of my struggles, especially with some of the issues that we've worked with on the CF Engagement Network, is the element of copays and how to navigate those and manage those. And there are, certain loopholes that can be jumped through, but you have to know exactly what you're talking about, exactly how the system works. And but you have to be well-educated, well-versed, and knowledgeable about the whole system. And it shames me that while you're telling this horrific story, how many of us are nodding in collective experience of just that bureaucratic nonsense. And the one point that really stood out to me was you saying, here it is 2022 and we're still fighting this. I don't know if you would agree or not, but I almost feel like as years go by, it gets harder and worse.
Absolutely. It absolutely gets worse. And it's like politics comes in, and I don't understand it. I've talked to the Democratic and the Republican legislators here in Michigan, and this Rare Disease Advisory Council is a bipartisan. This is just to give the voice to the rare community, and it's to give a voice to insurance companies and pharma, everyone. We're in this together. I don't hate any of them. I hope they don't hate any of us. We all need to work together because it will benefit everyone. But yet there is still some, of not communicating, or of somebody thinking, I don't know, I think they're trying to do something sly. Like there isn't, who would benefit from that? We all just want coverage. And we all know this, but it is absolutely wrong in the United States of America that every person doesn't have health insurance, first of all, and that depending on how much money you make is going to depend on what kind of coverage you get. A good example is actually when the pandemic started, and Molly is in the UK. So if you have a rare disease there, you only pay out of pocket $150 a year, $150 a year. During the pandemic, everybody with a chronic illness got hand sanitizer, toilet paper to their door. They know who you are, so they mail it to you, and they got canned goods. So they take care of them right away. And the other thing was they were giving masks and everything, and your job is your insurance, your health insurance isn't connected to your job. So Molly said, whew, thank goodness, because she couldn't work because obviously she had cystic fibrosis. There's no vaccine at the time. She didn't lose her health insurance because it wasn't connected to her job. So there are little things like we have to get together and say, oh, the UK does it this way. This works good for the UK. This doesn't. Maybe we can adapt to that in America, or, because Canada doesn't have all the answers either. My wonderful CF mom friends in Canada are like, don't quote everything in Canada. Each province there is fighting for the triple combo. They're, they don't have it easy there. The only thing people seem to relate to in Canada is, for, oh my gosh, it escapes me, the drug insulin, is that people say it's cheaper to get insulin in Canada. And it may be, and that may be the only one thing, but their system isn't perfect either. And certainly the United States, our system isn't either. We kind of have to figure out and learn from other countries how to make it better, because some people have good things, and some don't, not for people with a chronic illness in the UK, but maybe in the UK, it takes you longer to be seen if you're healthy, so everything has some good and some bad, of course, and nothing's perfect, but we have to do better, quicker.
Right. Laura, I just wanted to also, while we have you another 15, 20 minutes, just talking about the some of the other resource that your organization provides in the CF community, and how people can support that and contribute to that and become involved, and also how can people access that support, and are there certain criteria or eligibility factors to be aware of, because that's part of our intention with this community resource class, is to also help educate the community about what resources are out there, that people that may not be aware of the Bonnell Foundation, who, like Rima said, she wished she had known about you years ago. But what can you elaborate on in terms of people's involvement, both from a giving and receiving side?
Giving, anybody that wants to give can go on our website and donate. We're actually doing something new in May. It's going to be a donation wall. So let's say you want to donate specifically to lung transplant, you can do that. Or if you want to donate, I want to give a Starbucks card to a mom in the hospital, you can do that. And we do help people with CF across the country, not just in Michigan. So as far as an education scholarship, we've given out scholarships to people in California, Nebraska, all over the place. So it's very inclusive as far as getting everybody around the country. You just have to have proof of cystic fibrosis, that a letter that comes from your doctor when you're applying for all of this, and you apply online. We're always looking for people to volunteer and help us and do maybe smaller fundraisers, because smaller fundraisers and add up, of course, but we always need help with that as well. And that's great. That would really help us out a lot to keep going. We made it through the pandemic, but this year seems to be harder. I don't know how you're thinking, Brian, but we had such a sigh of relief that, whew, we made it through the pandemic, even though the pandemic it's not over, of course, but this year is harder. I find that a lot of our supporters in pharma, they've either gone out of business, been bought by huge companies, and just it's just harder. I think. So yes, if anybody wants to volunteer, donate, do a little fundraiser, we could really use that help. Yeah, and I also wanted to say, I would love to give a free t-shirt to somebody. I don't know how we can do it, but you can pick a name out of, people who join this, but they can either have one of these, which was designed by Dylan Mortimer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you
Oh,
can't
wow.
see the whole,
Nice.
you can't see the entire design, but they can either have one of those shirts, or we have our CF Tribe shirts.
Nice.
And they can have one of that. So if you just let me know, you pick a name, give me an address, we'll ship it out. So somebody can wear one of our t-shirts. And we have lots of them, so.
How about
Yeah.
The first person that comments on the Facebook Live video of your daughter's names?
Oh,
Okay.
Whoever says or types either of your daughter's names, the first 2 people will get shirts.
Fantastic. Perfect.
Great.
Make sure they get you their address so we can ship it out to the correct place. But yeah, I love this, Brian, and I love you, and I love what you're doing, and I love what all our little organizations do. I think it's so important. We each fit such a niche, and if I can't help someone, I'm like, check out CFLF, they can help you. And you do that for me. And I think the CF community, and I hear it all over and over again from everyone that I talk to, wow, your CF community, you're all really tight. And we are. There's a zero competition. We're all here to help each other and our community. And I think it's fantastic. I think it's wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It really is. And just speaking about the rare disease community as a whole, I think the work that, was described in the Breath of Salt book and the history of the CF Foundation is such a leading role model in the rare disease community about what can be accomplished from a public awareness, from a public advocacy, from a financial research and development perspective. But I know that cystic fibrosis is regarded as the rare disease model of how to tackle feeling like you're still living in the dark ages. A friend of mine from high school's daughter has a rare disease that's skin-related scleroderma. And the treatments, the knowledge, the understanding, that those are the exact words that she said to me, that it's like living in the dark ages with this disease, that everything is a guess. And as she has gotten to know the rare disease community, everyone aspires to reach the unification and the power of the CF community.
And, this is slightly off topic of what you were saying, but I'm going back to our podcast, and to the community. So we just did a podcast with Katerina, who escaped from the Ukraine. She's a CF mom. And wow, listening to her, and, there's 900 people in Ukraine, 900 CF families, so very small, but now she's in Germany. And her daughter actually ended up in the hospital, and she's 4 years old. And she says this in the podcast, her daughter ran under and hid under the hospital bed because a helicopter was flying out, an emergency helicopter, but because they escaped Ukraine during the war, she thought they were going to be bombed. She didn't realize they were going to pick up a patient, and the German doctor started crying because, so much trauma. You have the trauma of the disease, then you have the trauma of being a refugee in Germany, and then your 4-year-old is under the hospital bed thinking they're going to be bombed because a helicopter is just taking off to pick up a patient. So we really need to be there for one another, because there's so much going on. I mean, from the pandemic to just our chronic illness, right, to our caregivers, so much.
Absolutely.
Oh, and Laura, just before we let you go and before we conclude, I just wanted to mention one thing. As a sibling of two adults living with CF, when I looked up your foundation, like it gave me like a lot of inspiration and hope, knowing that like, you know, this foundation was like, you know, created to help the parents and the families of CF. And I really want to commend you on bringing a spotlight to the other communities that are underdiagnosed with this illness, such as you know, people in other countries, what you just mentioned with the refugees in Ukraine and the different ethnic groups such as like, you know, Blacks, Hispanics, who because of cystic fibrosis not being commonly found amongst certain groups of people, it often gets missed. And you bringing a spotlight to all those different things, like I just want to thank you for doing that, because there's it's difficult enough to have a voice about cystic fibrosis and other rare diseases, but to also to, you know, to continue to fight and spread that awareness with everyone who is affected with it. I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you for saying that. It means a lot to me. And we still have so much more work to do. I mean, that whole newborn screening thing is crazy that so many people are missed as well. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Likewise, I highly encourage any viewers to visit the bonnellfoundation.org and provide your support, even if it's a comment of feedback, of support for what they're doing, or contribution, or being involved as volunteers. Laura, I just want to thank you for the tireless effort you've put into creating this organization and the amazing resource that you've crossed your journalism expertise and passion for with your other passion for the CF community. And it's a resource unlike any other, and your niche is so clear on helping to educate and inspire and support the community. And I can certainly feel the difficulties of creating the organization and making it through this pandemic, both physically, emotionally, and financially. And there's still a lot of work to go, a lot of work to be done, and a little ways to go before we do have a cure in place. So thank you for everything you do from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for this platform. I appreciate all of you. And yeah, it was great to be with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can't wait to be in person again.
I know. I'm living for it. So.
Yes, yes. Great. Well,
So yeah,
anything
thank
else
you.
you'd like to mention, or?
I don't think so. I mean, we have a big event coming up in September. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's September 30th, and you can get more information on our website, but really visit us in May too. You'll see a lot of who we are and see a lot of videos. Like I said, but yeah, we have a big event in September, the Night of Hope celebration. If anybody wants to come, make a donation for our live or silent auction, that would be great too. And that's probably it. Thank you.
I want to come.
Absolutely.
Me too.
Come to Detroit. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and telling everyone about your wonderful nonprofit. It's been a joy to have you on here. And just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Beatrice, Chiesi, and Nestle Health Science. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. I know it's Thursday, but the weekend. All right. Well, bye.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you all.
Thank
Take
you
care.
again.
Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.
All right. The live stream stopped. Oh, I can stop recording.
God, Pete.